Marcus Webb's hands trembled as he gripped the mop handle, staring at the police tape that now cordoned off the parking garage where, just 12 hours ago, he'd made a split-second decision that defied every instinct telling him to look away. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the concrete where broken glass still glittered like scattered diamonds. He thought about his daughter Emma, asleep at home with the neighbor who'd agreed to watch her during his night shift. What would have happened to her if things had gone differently? What would happen to her now that everything had changed? But let's go back to where it all began, to the moment when an ordinary man's extraordinary choice would set off a chain of events that neither he nor the most powerful woman in the city could have possibly anticipated. Marcus had been working as a night janitor at Silverstone Tower for 3 years, ever since his wife Rachel passed away from cancer, leaving him alone to raise their 7-year-old daughter. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and allowed him to be home when Emma woke up for school. He'd clean the offices from midnight to 6 in the morning, moving through the building like a ghost, invisible to the executives whose desks he dusted and whose trash he emptied. He knew their names from the nameplates and the papers they left behind. He knew who took pride in their workspace and who left coffee rings on expensive mahogany. But they didn't know him. To them, he was just part of the furniture, another fixture that kept their world running smoothly while they slept. That Tuesday night started like any other. Marcus clocked in, exchanged brief nods with the security guard, and took the service elevator up to begin his rounds on the executive floors. He developed a rhythm over the years, a meditation in motion that helped quiet the loneliness that still haunted him in the small hours of the morning. He'd think about Emma, about her latest drawing that hung on their refrigerator, about the parent-teacher conference he'd have to attend next week, about whether he could afford to buy her the winter coat she needed before the really cold weather hit. Around 2:30 in the morning, he was finishing up on the 20th floor when he realized he'd left his cleaning cart near the parking garage entrance. He took the stairs down, preferring the exercise to the claustrophobic service elevator. As he pushed open the heavy door to the garage, he heard voices, urgent, threatening, wrong. His first instinct was to retreat, to let whatever was happening happen without him. A single father couldn't afford to be a hero. Emma needed him alive, needed him safe. But then he heard it, a woman's voice, defiant despite the fear threading through it, saying, "You'll never get away with this." Marcus peered around the concrete pillar. 3 men surrounded a woman in an expensive suit, her dark hair disheveled, her briefcase on the ground beside her BMW. He recognized her immediately. Victoria Chen, CEO of Silverstone Industries, one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country. Her face was on the cover of magazines in the lobby. She'd revolutionized renewable energy technology and built a billion-dollar empire before she turned 40. One of the men grabbed her arm. Another held something that glinted under the dim garage lights, a knife. Every rational thought screamed at Marcus to walk away. Call security from a safe distance. Stay invisible. Stay alive. But his body moved before his mind could stop it. He thought of Emma, yes, but he also thought of Rachel, of the night she'd looked at him with those knowing eyes and made him promise to always be the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who did the right thing even when it was hard. "Hey!" Marcus shouted, his voice echoing through the garage. "Security's on the way. I already called them." It was a lie, but it worked. The 3 men turned, startled. In that moment of distraction, Victoria pulled free and ran toward Marcus. The men hesitated, exchanged glances, then scattered toward a waiting van. Tires squealed as they sped away, leaving Marcus and Victoria standing in the exhaust-scented silence. Victoria was shaking, her breath coming in short gasps. Marcus noticed blood on her sleeve where one of them had grabbed her too roughly. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his own adrenaline making his voice unsteady. She looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time despite passing him countless times in the building's corridors. You're the janitor. You saved my life. I just made some noise," Marcus said, uncomfortable with the weight of her gratitude. "We should call the real security now. And the police." The next few hours were a blur of police statements, security footage reviews, and concerned executives who appeared despite the ungodly hour. Victoria insisted Marcus stay, insisted he tell his story again and again. When dawn finally broke and he was free to leave, she stopped him at the elevator. "I'm going to make this right," she said. "What you did, I'm going to repay you." Marcus shook his head. I don't need anything. I just need to get home to my daughter. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. You have a daughter. Emma. She's 7. Neighbors watching her. I should go, Victoria said. But this isn't over. Marcus thought that would be the end of it. He'd done a good thing, and now life would return to normal. But 3 days later, Victoria showed up at his apartment. Not with a check, not with a photo opportunity, but with questions. She asked about Emma, about his wife, about his life. She sat on his worn couch and looked at his daughter's drawings with genuine interest. And she listened. I grew up poor, Victoria said quietly, after Emma had shyly shown her a school project. My mother cleaned offices too. I know what you're doing for your daughter. I know what it costs. What Victoria did next wasn't a handout, it was a hand up. She created a position for Marcus in building operations management, with real hours, real benefits, and a salary that meant he could be present for Emma during the evenings. She established a scholarship fund in Rachel's name at Emma's school. But more than that, she became a presence in their lives, a mentor, a friend, a reminder that kindness creates ripples that spread farther than we can imagine. The men who attacked her were eventually caught. They'd been hired by a rival company trying to steal her latest technology breakthrough. Victoria testified, and Marcus learned that the courage he'd shown that night had saved not just a life, but the life's work that would eventually bring clean energy to millions. Years later, Marcus would stand on a stage accepting an award for community service, with Victoria in the audience applauding, and Emma, now a college student studying engineering, beaming with pride. He'd think back to that night in the parking garage, to the moment when he'd chosen to be brave instead of invisible. Because that's what the story really was, a reminder that we're never just janitors or CEOs, never just our job titles or bank accounts. We're all human, all vulnerable, all capable of extraordinary things when we choose compassion over fear. Marcus had saved Victoria's life, yes. But she'd honored that gift by seeing him, truly seeing him, and lifting him up the way his courage had lifted her. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is recognize the humanity in others. Sometimes that recognition changes everything.